Hello everybody and welcome back to another video for the day. We're going in r/Tales from the Front Desk because as somebody who actually has worked customer service in retail for a while, much like the same with people that happen to work in the hotel business being at the front desk there, you happen to see some weird stuff. So yeah, I might as well talk about it. And I'll tell you this right now, there's no level of stupid people will not go to. I've had people walk into my work, look at me wearing my uniform with the work logo on it after walking past a sign that let them know what store they were entering, and asked what store this was in. I can guarantee you a lot of retail memes actually have some sense of legitimacy to it. But without a further ado, like, comment, subscribe, let's get into this. The engagement in the video for the algorithm very much does help out the video a lot with the likes and comments and everything, so if you guys would like to see more stuff like this, let me know what you like about it. I always love hearing the positive feedback. Bridezilla and her extended family destroy 70 hotel rooms. Who else here loves Bridezilla stories? Because boy do I have one. Buckle up because it's a long one. It includes drunken adults and minors shoplifting, and end of at least 2 relationships, a very long visit to your friendly neighborhood police officers, a few evictions, and a dookie ton of overtime for my employees. It was like we were the host of a live version of the Jerry Springer Show last night. Needless to say, there's gonna be an employee appreciation party very soon, since none of them walked out on me with all the crazy stuff that happened. I'm an FOM at a hotel that has 132 rooms, and the wedding party that stayed with us last night had rented out 70 of them. But that's not all. We also had not one, but 2 school sports teams in-house, renting a combined total of 30 rooms. Needless to say, our hotel was very well bursting at the seams, especially since each group wanted to be as far away from the other as possible, and we had to pack regular travelers between them all. Party hardy, am I right? Hindsight is 2020, and we should have realized that we were in for a storm 2 days ago. Bridezilla, her groom King Kong, and the wedding party of monsters all checked in. The men checked into one of our largest suites for a bachelor party, while the women checked into another for their bachelorette party. We fully expected the men to cause a riot because they were hauling in beer literally by the keg. In reality, Bridezilla and her Bridezilla maids were the one that went on a rampage. Not only did they tally up to a total of 3 noise complaints, the 4th one gets you evicted, and another $100 worth of pantry charges, but they actually paid a group of kids $20 each to run up and down the hallways. I can only suspect it was because they meant to use the kids as a distraction from their own roughhousing. The employee on duty that night said that guests came down to report that they thought that the room was being used to film a Girls Gone Wild video. That's a name I haven't heard in a while. But the sun eventually set, and I came in to work my morning shift the next day. I stupidly didn't see all of the red flags sailing right in front of my face. Less than 15 minutes into my shift, Bridezilla's maid of honor comes down. She sees that I'm standing behind the desk and wearing a name tag, so she rightfully treats me like I'm not a human being because, as we all know, people that work customer service are just robots in cheap flesh suits. Beep boop. Well, she chews me out a little bit for my employees' despicable behavior last night towards herself and her best friends. I run through my programming and run apologize template 012 and say, "We are sorry we have made you feel disrespected and insulted," but inform her that her room had multiple noise complaints against it. "We are very strict on our noise policy, ma'am," I told her. "You aren't the only guest in the hotel, and if you cannot be courteous to our other guests, we will kindly ask that you seek other accommodations." Bridezilla's maid of honor didn't like that and said, "Well, it's just my opinion, but as someone who was part of a wedding that's brought your hotel more than 60 rooms worth of business, I think you guys should be a little more lenient with the rules for us." Unfortunately, my SAS module was not installed at the time due to a lack of sleep. So, instead of going Minnesota nice on her, I told her we are trying to provide a consistent experience to all guests. I know you guys are throwing a party, and it's a happy time for many of you, but we cannot bend on our noise policy. After that exchange, she has a list of people arriving today that she wants me to assign to specific rooms, because I have to make sure certain people aren't rooming too close together. Some of them have cheated on the other ones, but they promise to behave themselves if they don't have to look at each other. Now, I may be a simple robot that cannot consume liquid beverages, but in my opinion, I don't believe X's and alcohol mix well. Maid of Honor also asked for housekeeping to come up ASAP to clean their trashed room because they were going to use it as a prep room for the wedding. The housekeeping's executive doesn't even show up for another hour, and I refuse to leave the desk to spend time cleaning their room. I told her that she'd have to wait a bit before somebody came in, to which she again offered her opinion and said,
I think the hotel this big should have someone always on duty for stuff like this.
By now, it's 9 a.m., basically dawn of the second day. And would you believe it, people for the wedding are already showing up to check in. It's wonderful that all of these people are so punctual that they are an entire 6 hours early, just so they aren't late. Graciously, we are not full the previous night, so I allow them all to check into their rooms as they showed up. But you want to know what I honestly thought? They all look like clones of that woman from that "that's my opinion" gif that I keep referencing. And I did not want to test how well my eardrums could stand up to a whole choir of sirens. The small highlight to the busy morning is that there was a professional that came in and did the hair for all the kids involved in the wedding party. She did up flowers for all the girls' hair, and they all looked freaking adorable running through the breakfast area, and were so excited to show off their new dresses to anyone that walked past them. I hope Bridezilla doesn't influence those kids' behaviors too much. The rest of the morning passes by in a flash. I'd done at least 40 of the 75 arrivals we had for the day. The PM shift arrives, and I catch her up to speed and offer to stay late with her. I expected it to be just as crazy until the wedding starts at 5. She declines and says that she'll be fine, a response which she tells me she regretted in a text message later that night. At 5 o'clock, she had a line of people out the door. All of them are a part of the wedding group and screaming at her because they are now late for the wedding. More than 5 women were demanding that she give them the keys so they could change in the rooms without having them bother with trivial things like payments or signatures. She was a trooper and stood her ground, asking all of them to wait their turn to check in. My houseman on duty even offered to help her if she signed into the second computer for him, but that small ray of hope was quickly squashed. A mother on the 3rd floor called down to inform us that her son had swallowed a large quantity of pool water. The pool water upset his stomach, and he ended up vomiting all over the elevator and 3rd floor, the very same floor that the wedding party was pre-assigned and checking into. So he had to go deal with that, once that rush was over with all of the quiet for a few peaceful hours. Then it was time for the shuttle to pick them up. Weddings usually all follow the same pattern. They ask for shuttle service from 8 p.m. until 1 a.m. Happy to pay our outlandish fee for private use of the shuttle. Then, no one bothers to use it until 11 p.m., at which point the alcohol makes them view the shuttle as a clown car and they all believe they've joined the circus. Tonight followed the same pattern with only one exception. At 8:30, the driver had a single woman ride it back to the hotel, sobbing her eyes out. She told him that she saw her fiancé making out with her cousin behind the reception hall and couldn't believe it. He tries to offer her comforting words on the way back, but I'm told it was all around an awkward 15-minute ride. When she get back to the hotel, she demanded of the desk that we take her card off file and make her ex-fiance pay. Except we don't, because we need him to come down and slide his card. The chances of that happening were slim to none. So, as my shuttle driver was busy acting as the Ronald McDonald clown bus, stuffing close to triple the legal capacity into it, since not a single one of them bothered listening to him, I'm sure you all have one burning question come to mind. What about those sports teams? Have they caused any problems? Can you guess the answer? If you guessed yes, then you are right! One of the two teams had rented out a conference room to have a pizza party in. They were informed several times that they only had the room from 5 to 9 p.m., and after the children stuffed themselves full of pizza, they ran off to use the swimming pool. And as I'm sure you are aware, global law states that if you are at a hotel for your kids' sports events, you are legally allowed to get completely wasted. And I mean absolutely dookie-faced. At that point, the hotel staff is supposed to babysit your gremlins so you can party like you are 21 again. Isn't that swell? So our houseman is trying to get the kids to behave themselves and stay quiet in the pool while the front desk is threatening to evict the parents. Because it's now 10:30 and Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus is being blasted from the conference room and can be heard throughout every inch of the hotel. Meanwhile, the one singular mother that was being responsible stopped by the desk with about 20 bottles of Diet Coke and her son. Apparently, our vending machine is broken on the second floor, and she said that her son put in the money and then proceeded to press the button 100 times while waiting for his soda. And he must the strategy guide for the vending machine downloaded to his phone, because he knew just the right amount of times to push the buttons so that the machine would continue spitting out pops. The son did it about 2 more times before the mother realized you couldn't buy 20 pops with only $5 and forced him to bring all of it back down to the desk and apologize for stealing them. The other parents back in the conference room have been waving off the front desk's threats until we finally get a lucky break. The night audit came in a half hour early because of the weather being bad, and she didn't want to be late. My night auditor has plenty of years under her belt and has seen far worse. She called the police within seconds of walking in and informed the sports parents that she was doing so. When the police arrived, the parents had all belligerently returned to their rooms, and my PM desk shift was able to go home after that stressful day of work. But that's when the real fun starts. The officers got called away only a few minutes after arriving, but we know exactly where they went after that. They actually got called to the reception hall where the wedding was being held. Apparently, they needed to shut down the bar because the parents were buying drinks for the kids who were 18 to 20. Plus, one of the kids that was drinking became heavily intoxicated, stole the keys to his mother's car from her purse, and crashed it into another car in the parking lot. The kid was fine, but probably suffered a wicked hangover this morning. The reception hall had called the police to kick them all out, but that's when they became our problem again. See, the driver, who should have still had pickups at 12, 12:30, and 1, had now had to pick them all up at 12. There was at least 35 people cramming into the bus, each of which was holding a beer glass with at least half a pint of beer in it. He put his foot down then, turned off the shuttle, and told them they weren't allowed to have open alcoholic beverages while in the vehicle, and would not drive them back until they all disposed of them. Needless to say, it didn't go over well. None of them listened to him, and just berated him to bring them back because it was cold. One of the officers on site came over and told the driver that they'd be willing to escort him back and would overlook the many passengers and their open alcohol, just so they could get these people inside. So, when the shuttle and the police entourage showed up at the hotel half an hour later, it was like unleashing Pandora's box upon the building. 4 officers even stayed around to help the night audit deal with all of the drunk and disorderly, because there were a lot of complaints. The first thing that happened was that someone was complaining about a room on the first floor. Someone was attempting to do an amateur remake of 50 Shades of Grey, and we're not being subtle about it. Then there was screaming and yelling, and then the breaking of lamps. Remember that cousin that broke up someone's relationship earlier? Well, she apparently had a fiancé of her own. And while she was doing the nasty with another man, her drunken fiancé walked in on them. It didn't end well, and we had to evict all 3 of them. Meanwhile, on the 3rd floor, Girls Gone Wild had resumed in full force. The night audit went up to one of the officers to tell them that this group, that it was their final warning before they were evicted from the hotel as well. While she was doing so, a man in the room across the hall opened his door to yell at the night audit. His exact words were, "Why are you dragging me out of bed? Do something about this dang noise." Before the officer, that I presume the old man didn't see, could say anything, the night audit spun on him and said, "You got out of your bed of your own volition, sir. We're dealing with the situation." It's all the same song and dance for the next few hours. People call to complain, the audit and officers deal with it, and eventually everyone slips into sleep. Please read "slips into sleep" as "became blackout drunk and passed out." Apparently, the officers were having a slow night, and 2 of them stayed until the night audit was done since she didn't feel safe on her own. My houseman stayed until 3 a.m. to help the night audit with moral support and cleaning the hallways, because they were trashed with a capital T. We don't know what 310 was doing in their room at 4 in the morning, but 210 swears all the way to Sunday that they were practicing an Irish gig and falling. There was a lot of falling, but the crazy thing is, when the audit got up to the room, the entire floor was silent. Towards the end of the evening, a man comes down to our pantry, takes an arm full of random items, and starts walking away. He's clearly drunk because the officers watched him bewilderingly, and the night audit calls out, asking if the man would like to charge the items for his room. Said man must have actually been 3 deer in a trench coat because he sprinted off the second she asked. An officer caught him, but he was so drunk that our night audit took pity and said that we wouldn't press charges and asked to just escort him back to the room. And now today, I come in at 7 a.m. and I'm caught up to speed. I'll tell you, seeing a cop standing around at the front desk does not do my heart any good. If I have to come in and see a cop, I fully expect them to be there because someone got their life ended. The morning was quiet. Too quiet. And then I hear it. The drunken, heavy stomps down the staircase. The screaming agony of a stomach demanding food above alcohol. And Bridezilla descends into the lobby with a hunger. A hunger that can only be satiated by screaming at the FOM. So I take it, listen to her scream, and demand that everyone in her party be refunded. All 70 rooms. She can't believe that we had the audacity to call the cops on her friends and family.
It's a wedding,
She shouts over and over.
We are supposed to have fun, not be treated like a bunch of dogs.
I really didn't want to deal with her BS, so I told her, "Ma'am, you must keep it down, or else we will have to call the cops back. Our employees were verbally threatened by some of your guests last night and did not feel safe." I wanted to say that if they didn't want to be treated like dogs, they shouldn't act like dogs then. But I felt that may be a little too unprofessional and couldn't override my own programming. So the wedding party began to check out, but not before they trashed breakfast. There was food dropped, coffee spilled, and my 2 breakfast attendants swear it was done on purpose. When they were cleaning up some spilled coffee, a bridesmaid knocked over another cup of coffee, and they all snickered at them. What is this, Mean Girls 2? And that's my tale of Bridezilla. I've already gotten 2 emails from our guest relations department demanding or saying that there have been complaints opened up against us about employee behavior last night. But they are both members of the wedding party, so all I have to do is submit a copy of the police report, and I think we'll be good. I pray that all of you will never have to deal with bridezillas of your own, and if you do, Godspeed and good luck.
Oh, hey, we're renting out all of these rooms. We're spending all of this money.
Also, they absolutely try to justify destroying the place, and then also same person.
I want my money back.
If you happen to go into a place and just because you're spending a lot of money does not mean you have justifications to try to break any rules or property? Like, stop it! What is it about some weddings that makes people try to act like this? Like, I can be holier than thou because I'm spending all of this money. I really don't understand what gets people in the mood to try to act like this. But yeah, the whole treating people in service as not human, yeah, that one I feel a little bit too much because, yeah, like I've stated before, I work retail. It is very unfortunate why we get treated the exact same as the self-checkout screens. And if I had the ability to, I'm fairly certain I would have evicted them the second they do that whole spilling the coffee and laughing at the person cleaning it up, because that's just outright immature. A dinner date with a guest. I was raised in the hospitality industry. My dad buys old hotels and motels and fixes them up and then sells them again. During the fix-up process, he keeps them operating like normal hotels. As his oldest child, it was usually my responsibility to help keep things running. So I thought I'd share some of my favorite tales. This one takes place after I decided to stretch my wings and work for a hotel not owned by my family. I was alternating between second and third shift at this hotel, and now, at the time, I had my hair dyed a ridiculously bright red, like fire truck red, and while my boss had been hesitant to let me keep it, I never got anything but compliments from guests. This particular hotel was located near a hospital and offered a discount and shuttle service to people with relatives at the hospital. During one of my second shifts, this older man comes to check in. He's staying for a week with the hospital rate and looks very distressed. His English isn't great, but he does his best. Several times during the process, he mentions how much he likes my hair. He also got very talkative about why he was staying there. Since it was a slow night, I indulged him. It turns out that his wife had been flown to our hospital from Puerto Rico. After he checked in, he went to the hospital to check on his wife and stayed there for a while. I was still on shift when he returned, and he asked me where he could get some food. I gave him a list of restaurants that delivered to us. He asked which was my favorite and what I liked to eat there then, and wandered off to make his call and lingered around the lobby waiting for the delivery. When the delivery showed up, he brought his food to the desk and set a box in front of me. He told me that he hadn't eaten dinner alone in 50 years, and he wasn't ready to start. He had offered the food that I told him was my favorite, and was hoping that I'd be able to eat with him. Since my relief had shown up already, I clocked out early and sat in the breakfast room with the guests to eat our food. Every night after that was the same thing. He'd come home from the hospital and ask me to order food for him, so he'd get to the front desk discount and I'd order my own food, or warm up whatever I brought. His wife wasn't doing good, and he ended up having to stay with us for almost 2 months. We had dinner together every night. I lived 2 blocks away and would come in on my days off. The guy was really nice and really lonely. His wife wasn't doing good, and none of his kids were able to get to the US. He called me Red, even after I had changed my hair, and would tell me all about his life in Puerto Rico with his kids. After some time with bad guests, it was a really great experience. His wife ended up passing away in the hospital, and he made sure to wait for me to come into work to leave, and thanked me for the dinners, and let me know that I had made a hard time a little bit better. Okay, wow, I did not expect the story to blow up like this. Thank you all for your kind comments. I'm going to try to answer some of you. This story took place 4 years ago when I was 19. I lost my mom when I was 6, and despite the young age, my memories of that time are very vivid. I remember the lack of kindness that seemed to be everywhere. It was also the first time I saw my father cry. This guest reminded me of that time, and I wanted to make sure that he knew he wasn't alone. This stuff's that wholesome shit I absolutely love, and it just goes to show, even though the world can be really crappy at times, there's little bits of compassion that can really go a long way. You might think that you're just having dinner with somebody, but from their perspective, it could be meaning a whole lot more. I'm hoping that both you and the person you decided to have dinner with are both doing alright. Losing a loved one is never easy, but it's always good to have people around you that are looking out for you. I thought she was checking in for a one-night stand. Boy, was I glad I was wrong. So, this happened a while ago, before worldwide quarantine became a thing. But I hadn't reached the karma minimum to post it until recently. Enjoy! I had been working as a front desk agent about a week. It's my first time working at a hotel, so I'm still learning the ropes, even though I had previously worked as a check-in agent for a cruise line. I'm working the afternoon shift, and things have been pretty slow. A couple of check-ins here and there, and that's just about it. It's about 7 p.m. when this lady, we'll call her Libby, comes in, and after talking things out at the valet, makes her way over to me. We exchange greetings, and she tells me that she would like to reserve a room, but only for a couple of hours. Obviously, we are not a motel, so I let her know that the minimum of time that she would reserve for a room would be a full night. After asking what the price would be, $240, which is way too much for the kind of hotel I work at, by the way, she agrees and hands me her credit card. This is where things get weird. As soon as I ask her for her ID to make the reservation, Libby backtracks and says that she doesn't want her name anywhere on the reservation and would like to make it under the name of the guy who would be joining her later instead. I pause for a moment, and after asking her again if she was planning on using the room as well, I tell her that I at least need to put her name into the accompanying list for the room to reassure that only the employees would be able to see said list, and no, the guy she was planning to meet wouldn't see it. I would like to make it very clear that throughout this whole interaction, Libby has been super composed, kind, and understanding. At this point, however, I'm just thinking she's here for a one-night stand and doesn't want the dude to know anything about her because she's probably married or something. Which I can work with, sure, but why not just actually get a motel lady? This theory of mine is further solidified when Libby asks me to make a note in the reservation so that if at any point we need to address her by name around the dude, we wouldn't call her by her real name, and instead she gives me a fake name, or so I thought, to address her by. At this point, I'm obviously bewildered, but still trying to be accompanying and trying really hard not to let it show how much I'm trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. As we go through the rest of the check-in process, and she even goes as far as showing me a pic of the dude, so I'll know who he is when he comes in. I hand her the key, and she heads to her room. About an hour later, mystery dude walks in. Let's call him Jake. My coworker, who has no clue of anything, ends up checking him in, so I don't really get to see much of Jake. To be honest, at this point, I still wasn't giving the whole thing much thought other than, that's a bit weird, lol. Not even 30 minutes have passed since Jake went up when Libby comes back down with hands me both keys. They'd both received one each and says, "Thank you," in the most serious yet cordial way, and then walks off. Multiple thoughts went through my mind as this lady was making her way to the valet. 1, that was way too fast even for a quickie. 2, why the heck did she give me 2 keys, and where's Jake? And 3, Libby, please tell me you didn't end Jake. Security is standing behind me, staring Libby down, probably having the same thought process as I am. The supervisor for security usually spends the night hanging out at FD. My coworker and I are whispering with each other, still trying to figure out what the heck happened, because that did not look like the lady who had just had a pleasant romp in the sheets. Cue Jake coming down the stairs, and okay, we can breathe, he's not dead. Now, what happened next, we couldn't see because we suddenly had an onslaught of distressed passengers, like 30. I wanted to die. So I thought I wouldn't find out what the heck had actually happened between Libby and Jake. But then, the worker from the valet came over, and boy did he have some tea to spill. It turns out that Libby had gone as far as asking the valet guy to park her car in a way that the license plate wouldn't be visible. Why? Because it turns out that Jake is Libby's husband. And you might be asking yourself by this point, why has this lady gone through so much trouble to hide anything that might give her identity away to her husband? Well, dear reader, that's because the alias that Libby gave me just so happened to be the name of the girl that Jake was cheating on her with. This woman somehow got her cheating husband to believe that his girlfriend had booked them a sweet night at the hotel, only for him to show up and find his wife sitting on the bed instead. This bamf of a woman came back downstairs after probably massacring the heck out of this idiotic boy, and not a hair out of place, and calmly had the valet bring both of their cars back, and then patiently waited for Jake Schmake to get his sorry butt back to the lobby so that she could extend her hand and demand her house keys from him. She then got into the car and just drove away. The only thing that would have made this even better was if Jake Schmake's girlfriend had also been there to tear into him as well. I like to think that she had a part to play in this whole thing, since how else would Libby have managed to trick him into getting the hotel? The point is, this woman is all I aspire to be, not expire. TLDR, Bamf of a woman tricked her cheating husband into thinking his girlfriend had booked them a night at a hotel only for him to walk in and find her husband. Yeah, a little bit of a pro tip I've taught people that I've been telling people for such a long time. The ultimate way to make sure that you never get caught cheating, don't get into a damn relationship. I've never understood how people can be getting into a relationship committed to another person and then see over that and it's like, alright, you know what? I'm gonna try it. One of the stupidest things you could do, and I will automatically label you as a trash individual if you think that it is perfectly fine to do that. But with that, that is going to have to be it the video. If you guys would like to see more of the videos like this one in the near future, I very much would appreciate like ratings and the comments down below what you liked about this. A lot of it, I really did like the wholesome stuff. That was very nice. I know it's a few versus the many kinds of thing, but that little wholesome stuff every once in a while just makes the day all that much better. But I'll hope to see you guys in the next one. Love you guys. You have a good one. Bye-bye.